PFC Phil Puente, United States Army, Korea. Phil enlisted in the United States Army at the age of 17 in 1952, and he fought in the Korean War. Phil served with the 36th Infantry Regiment, I Company, 7th Division, and he's featured in my film, Korea the Forgotten War. I interviewed Phil on November 29, 2006 in Abington, Maryland, and he has a great story to tell. I'd like to thank Brandon Glidden for making it possible for me to continue uploading these stories and sharing them with you. Brandon, thank you for your help. God bless you, sir, and for your passion and commitment to our veterans. Now it's my great pleasure to share with you the complete interview I did with Phil Puente here on the Military History Channel, Voices of History. God bless you. Thank you for watching. Okay, Phil, what year did you go to Korea?
1952.
Okay. Had you been in the military prior to that, or is that when you first
About a year.
Were you a Marine?
Army.
Army, okay. Give me the regiment, company, or what have you, or within your rank at the time.
The 32nd Infantry Regiment, Company I, 7th Division, Private First Class.
Okay. And how old were you at that time?
17.
Okay. And can you just give me just quickly why we're involved in Korea and you know the reason that we're over there, because a lot of people don't even know that.
Well, because there was a communist takeover of South Korea from the North Koreans. They invaded Korea, South Korea, and then the Chinese came in and made it a lot rougher. But the reason was takeover of communism.
Were you were you drafted or
No, I was a regular Army. I volunteered.
Okay, okay. Can you just tell me a little bit about going to Korea? You know, where you were when you first went in country there?
When I arrived in Korea, I was in a trucking company, and that was right interesting. The roads were on the side of mountains, and they were so, you had to back up, go forward and so forth to get around that mountain. And later on I decided to join the front, the infantry, so I transferred, they put me in the 7th Division. But that trucking was very interesting. You couldn't drive with lights, it had to be parking lights. And the mountains were cut so sharp that you couldn't just drive around them, you had to go up, back up, you know what I'm saying. And it was a great experience, you know. But then after I got into the infantry, I was glad because, not that I liked what happened, because I had friends die in my arms and stuff. And you know, it was tough. It was rough. But as it happened so long ago, you sort of look back and you're glad you did it because you did something for your country, and you did something that was good.
Well, let's just talk a little about Korea. The fighting over there. I mean, you're there in 1952, you said.
52 and 53.
So I've talked to quite a few veterans that served in 50.
That was rougher.
Through the Chosin Reservoir, and then 51. And were you ever? What was Pork Chop Hill? Is that something that was in Korea?
That was after I was there. Okay. That was in late 53.
Okay. Well, let's just talk a little bit about your infantry, right?
Yes.
What's your rank at the time?
Private First Class.
Okay. And
machine gunner.
You're over in a combat situation for the first time, basically. When
yes.
You get there, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And can you just tell me a little bit about your involvement with were you fighting the North Koreans or the Chinese?
Well, at first, when in April of 52 or May of 52, we were fighting North Koreans, but during that summer, we started to see a lot of Chinese. We fought Chinese, and the reason we knew they were Chinese was because they had certain kind of weapons that distinguished them from the North Koreans. They had what they called burp guns, and they were very well equipped, and they had a lot more than the North Koreans, and but we fought Chinese mostly.
Was either of the enemy tougher to fight than
The Chinese were experienced fighters. They were crack troops. They were good, and they were very vicious. They didn't take any prisoners. They were tough. And the North Koreans, they were a little more lesser, just like the South Korean army. They're not very strong, but the Chinese were a formidable foe. They were terrible. They were just awesome fighters.
Okay. That's what I've heard. That and you said they didn't take any prisoners, and I've heard that before. So I guess obviously you guys didn't want to get captured.
Well, I went in a patrol one time and I saw 10 GIs with their hands tied behind their back, bullet behind their head, execution style. I saw a lot of that stuff, you know, and the Chinese were responsible. And I had a friend that was taken prisoner. I saw him carry him off, but I couldn't shoot him with the machine gun because I could have killed him, you know. So his name was John Daves, and whether he made it back from prison camp or not, I don't know. I could never find out. But
So were you fighting a guerrilla type warfare in Korea, or was it? Did they come in wave attacks?
oh, wave attacks. The Chinese came in wave. I was on a quad 50, and all you did was fire all 4 guns at the same time on the MLR. And they would come in waves. I mean, they were crazy. I mean, you could hear them screaming and hollering and carrying on, and they would just thousands of them. I mean, at times, once in a while, and we got overrun in an outpost one night by a Chinese company, 200 of them, and I got a story about them in that book. And 30 of us were around 30. And only 6 of us came out of that walked down that trench to the main CP. So, you know, they were Chinese, and no doubt. But I think that I wouldn't want to. If you ask someone if you want to do it again, I don't really know. I mean, I'm proud of what I did, but to see people who die, you just don't. That's not very good.
And you were an infantryman,
Yes.
so you had an M1.
I had M1, and I also was a BAR, and I also handled a 30 caliber machine gun,
I'm sorry, you said you're a private?
private first class.
So you're in like a platoon, a squad, a company?
A squad, platoon of company. You're in Company I, 3rd Platoon, 1st Squad. In my case, it was 3rd Squad.
Okay. And so now, I mean, are your memories vivid of Korea? I mean, it sounds like you still remember a lot of what happened.
I remember a lot, but some of the stuff you can't remember. I remember the guys that I fought with. I remember the type of equipment that we used. Remember the hills. I remember pretty much everything. Remember that night's vivid because it was so traumatic. You know that we got hit, 10 o'clock at night, flares light up the sky, gunfire starts going, guys are dying around you, and so you know that was the most vivid experience. It was a place called Queens, and that's where I got wounded in that particular night. That particular night, was the first time that I saw hand-to-hand combat. Most infantrymen don't get to do that. But I saw it, but it was only for like 15 minutes or whatever. But it's vivid, and it's strong stuff, I think. You know.
Can you just share a little bit of what you saw and who was engaged in the hand-to-hand?
Around 11 o'clock that night, flares went up in the sky and lighted up the sky. Then we heard gunfire, and then all of a sudden people started yelling, screaming that things were happening, and the Chinese would come around the bunkers and they would throw these bombs called Bangalore torpedoes. It's a piece of pipe about 3 foot long with a piece of dynamite in it. They throw it into the bunker and guys just die. And but we knew that once dawn came that they would be gone. And sure enough, the dawn came along and they left. And they left a flag on top of the outpost, and I took it, and I went down the trench, and a general took it from me. He said it was for but he just wanted it. I mean, that's how it is. But it was a tough night. It was, many guys got killed. I mean, out of 30, possibly 25 were killed, and most of them were young guys, mostly draftees. They weren't regular, but they fought very well. They were good. They were good soldiers. It was cold, and I think that it was a big battle. It was something to really think about.
Now, you're talking about the hand-to-hand that you
Yes.
saw?
Well, the hand-to-hand combat came when I was in this bunker and I was manning a 30 caliber machine gun out the port, and all of a sudden, three people walk into the bunker, and I smelled garlic. And at first we thought they were GIs, but then we realized they were Chinese. So the guy that was with me turned around and he blasted them away with a carbine, and we sort of, But other than that, I mean, one of them came towards me, and I got in touch with him. He sort of wrestled, but after I pushed him away, the guy with the carbine took him out, And then when I got hit, I tried to get into this other bunker, and the guy that was in front of the bunker, Abram Speller, wouldn't let me in, or he was sort of blocking me, and the adrenaline was high, and I just pushed him out of the way, and I got in there. But that was the end of that. And the next morning, we realized how much damage they'd done, how many people they really got it. I mean, my best friend, Fred Fagan, he was laying down on his face with a trigger finger like he had a .45. Somebody took a gun out of his hand. And Neckens died in my arms. He was the squad leader. He was a corporal. Willard Neckens from Shenandoah Valley. And it was just a mess the next morning. They were all over the place, But we got through it, and...
Well, I mean, I think you lost me as far as the hand-to-hand. Was there a situation where you were involved with hand-to-hand, or you just saw some of your...
No, I was hand-to-hand in this bunker.
Okay.
I just wrestled with him, and I pushed him away, towards the entrance. By that time, my buddy, who had a 30 caliber carbine, killed all three of them, But other than that, there wasn't really bad stuff. It wasn't like I charged somebody and it was just they came to us,
Phil, did they train you for what you saw in Korea? I mean, were you trained to kill enemies, or I mean, how was the training versus the really going through it?
The training, well, when you go into basic training in the U.S. Army, you train under live conditions. When you train, they set a machine gun, and you got to crawl through these barbed wire and all. And that machine gun's set, and if you stand up, it'll cut you down. It'll kill you. So you train under conditions that are combat-like, but they're not real. I mean, but they don't really, when you go over there, you just do the best you can, But
what do you think got you through the harder times? Was it your training? Was it faith in God? I mean, what got you through those hard times?
I think it was faith in the Blessed Mother, God, my family. The first thing that comes out of your mouth when you get hit is Mom. It's not God, it's Mom. And then you say, Lord, please, you pray. I mean, if you're a God-fearing person, you have to believe, I mean.
Why do you think a wounded soldier would cry out for his mom? Why do you think they do that?
I don't know, but that's the truth. That's what happens. That's what I always saw, and I saw 10 months of combat. So every time somebody was getting killed or dying, it was their mother they were calling for her. And also God, but I remember the first thing was mom, And
Were you able to help any of the wounded around you? I mean, tell me.
Well, Willard Nickens was killed in my arms. He died in my arms. I shouldn't say he was killed in my arms. He died in my arms. We put a tourniquet on him and stuff, but he still died. I mean, he was hit too badly. I saw my buddy we were going to chow and mortars were coming in, and you can hear them coming in. They whistle like, and the round hit him right square in the face, and his whole head was blown off. He shouldn't be hearing this cat. But, you help when you can, and it's like the Marines and all the Army people, we don't let anybody stay behind, or we don't let, you do the best and you do all you can for your buddies, I mean, that's the way it is.
When you're over there in combat, Phil, are you conscious of the fact that you're fighting for God and country, or is it just survival?
You want the truth?
Yeah.
I don't think you think about country, and I don't think you think about the flag. I think you think about your family, your God. You think about, you said it, survival. You survive, and that's the bottom line. Every GI that says he's not there to survive is not telling the truth, because life is probably the most precious thing in the world. And in Iraq, those guys are awesome. They look for their buddies, and they don't leave them behind. Even if they get killed, they go back and they get them. And we did the same thing, but not as, because we didn't have that type of war. Ours was, we knew who to shoot, we knew who was shooting at us, but these guys in Iraq don't know. And not only do they have to defend themselves against guerrilla warfare, but the climate, the environment is so horrible. I mean, how can you live at 125 degrees during the day and 45 at night, and not have repercussions as far as colds and stuff like that? My son told me it was rough, but he's got to go back in October for the next tour.
Well, what they called Korea the Forgotten War. I mean, a lot of people don't know about Korea, or they don't know what happened in Korea, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm producing this documentary, is because I think it's important that we learn about the things. And but would you call the fighting over in Korea like a guerrilla warfare, or?
No, it was just a combat situation. They were hiding behind rocks and and foxholes and all this. So that's not guerrilla. Guerrilla warfare is when they hide behind trees and and of course you could say that a sniper's a guerrilla, but you didn't have much of that because you didn't have any trees, But they would go around a rock and shoot at you. I mean, but I wouldn't call it a guerrilla warfare.
So were you up on a line?
Yes.
You guys,
yes, a line.
You worked your way into a situation, or?
Well, we had certain days that we went on a push, and that means that you're going to, if there was Jane Russell Hill or Silver Star, or whatever, and you made that push, you were going to, the whole company, the whole regiment went, and you took it. Or you relieved another division. We relieved the 2nd Division many times, and also the Marines. And there was pushes, and there was training. The times when we weren't in combat, they would have live drills, with tracers going underneath, and you get to this point and everything. And no, it wasn't guerrilla warfare. It was just an ordinary war. It was one-on-one, more or less, you know. The worst thing I saw was when I was on that line and I was on that quad 50 when there was thousands coming at you and you didn't know what was going to happen. But a lot of times you would shoot a lot of them and they would just, they would just run, go back, you know. You had the MLR, which is the main line of resistance, which is a trench going from the outpost all the way back to the CP command post. But then after you left the trench, you went down, there was a river, and then from that river on the other side was the Chinese. And they would be firing at you. You could hear the bullets coming in at you. You could hear them just fly by you, you know. So it was, you know, but a lot of times you just hope that nobody would get hurt, you know. I mean,
Well, what's the sound of battle sound like?
well,
You described bits and pieces of it, but is there a sound to battle? Is there a distinct? I mean, to somebody who doesn't know anything about war, I mean.
well, gunfire, blasts, screaming, people dying, screaming. That's war. People just trying to survive. People just hoping it ends. And in our case, we knew the next morning they would be gone. And sure enough, dawn came and they left. I mean, I don't know how many we killed, but we got a good part of them.
Was it mainly at night when they came out?
Yes, most battles are fought at nighttime. Most times when you attack, it's at night. When you go on patrol, you only go at night. You have a recon, which is you just look around and hope to find something. When you go on a combat patrol, you engage and you find trouble. They're the two main kind of patrols that you pull. Now during the day, you're back in division rear, or you shine your rifle, or you clean your machine gun, or whatever. I'm not going to tell you. I got court-martial for something that happened. You want me to tell you?
Oh, it's up to you.
No.
That's okay.
Well, what it was, this lieutenant gave me an order, and he said, I was a squad leader at the time. He says, I want you to clean your machine guns. It was around 5:30 at night. We were going on patrol around 6:30, 6:45. And I said, I don't think so. I said, I can't take that order. He says, why? I said, because if you clean your equipment, you could divulge the position of your. And you think he's an officer, he would know, you know. He said, you're under arrest. So they fined me $30 and it was over with. But it cost me a stripe. That's why it was instead of a corporal, I was a PFC.
So you basically you said you're carrying an M1 and a BAR.
Your basic that you carry is if you're a rifleman, which the LMOS is 1745. You carry an M1, but you also, if you're lucky, you can carry a 45 strapped around your waist. And if you want another kind of piece of machinery, you can have a grease gun. That's a gun that's a 45. It's just a steel barrel, and it's automatic, and it shoots 45s. A lot of people had 30 caliber carbines, but you pretty much depended on your M1. That was the one, you know. But there's other jobs when you're an infantryman. They're called to be a BAR man. That means that you go and you handle a BAR. That's a pretty big gun, you know. But mainly the main piece was an M1, very reliable rifle, big range, accurate, you know.
Well, when you came home from Korea, I mean, did it ever bother you? What happened? Did you talk about it much at all, or I mean?
I didn't talk about it much, Larry. I had dreams of what happened. I would lay outside in the evening, and I felt like there was people coming at me with rifles and all this kind of stuff and all. As a matter of fact, it caught up with me. They just diagnosed me with PTSD, and I go to combat therapy classes every Monday night at 6 o'clock. And this didn't start bothering me till about a year ago, 2 years ago. It really got bad. I was waking up crying and bad dreams, and mainly because of what happened with Nickens. He died in my arms, and it's a hard thing to, you know, it's just hard, you know. And it started bothering me pretty bad, but started taking therapy classes, PTSD classes at the VA in Perry Point, and they helped me a lot, you know. But most people start getting PTSD not right away, but during the years, 20, 30 years later. And the reason for that is because when you come out back from Korea, and when you come out of the Army, you got a family to raise, you got a job, you're busy, you don't have time. But all of a sudden you retire, and everything comes back. You know, your health goes bad a little bit. You think about what happened over there, and you know, you think about memories and stuff like that.
You ever been to the Korean War Memorial?
Yes, very nice. The Vietnam Memorial's right next to it, and it's really nice, you know. But yeah, I've been there a couple times, you know. We have Veterans Day and all that. We sometimes go up there and visit the memorial, you know. I've never been to the World War II Memorial. I'd like to do that, but I don't know where it's at.
It's very nice too.
Do you know where it's at?
Yeah, it's right. It's on 17th Street. It's between the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial, right
I'll
there.
have to go.
Mall, yeah, but what, are you proud that you're a Korea War veteran?
Oh yes.
Do people thank you for your service?
No, when I came back, I was spit on, put on a bus because I was a Army man, Army soldier. They look at you like you're dirt. They were almost like the same thing as Vietnam. They would, it was awful, you know, going from Gwen Oak, Kathy knows where that is, to Woodlawn in a bus. I remember. They were awful. People just don't understand. And you were right, the Korean War was so much different than anything else. Nobody really cared. And when they call it the Forgotten War, I can see why. You know, you didn't see much ink about Korea when it was going on. There was like 40-some thousand guys killed, soldiers killed in Korea, Marines, and you didn't hear anything about that till the end, you know. But I got, if you don't mind me saying, I got some interesting stuff in there that you should look at.
After we talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So 10 months in combat.
Yeah.
Over there.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you were a squad leader at one time?
At one time, yeah. Well,
so
that's
you're in command of what?
just not 10 men.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a squad.
Are they looking up to you as their leader then? I mean,
Oh yeah, you have a squad leader, and he's the guy that, when you go on patrol, he's the guy that tells you what's going on, you know. I was also in charge of the platoon at one time or another. When they would, you know, a sergeant would get killed, you were next. They would pick you because you were the most experienced. You know, you would get rank in Korea there was 18-year-olds master sergeants in Korea.
tell me the months you were over there again, from when to when?
Probably it was, I got married in March. It was probably April of '52 to March of '53.
So you went through a winter over there.
Oh yes.
Tell me about the cold and how that affected the fighting.
Sometimes it was so cold that all the equipment would freeze. Nothing moved. Trucks, jeeps, tanks, nothing. It was so cold. Sometimes you'd wake up and there'd be 2 foot of snow on top of you. And your guns wouldn't work. They were froze up. There's only one place colder than that I can remember, and that was Scranton, Pennsylvania. We were on maneuvers, and we went to Scranton with our trucks. They froze up overnight. But in Korea, they had a regular winter. You were in the mountains, of course. And then they had their summers and their spring, just like we do here. But it was a very distinct thing that you saw. The North Korean was like a American. He was white-skinned, but the South Korean was dark, like a Mexican. Isn't that something? But you could tell the North Koreans because they were from the mountains. Yeah, they were used to the cold weather and stuff, But it was cold. It was. I'm telling you, it was terrible.
Did you guys, obviously you slept out in a sleeping bag?
Oh yeah, at times.
How do you survive in the cold like that?
You do. You have equipment. You have parkas. You have gloves. You have this new stuff that they used for the underneath. Like it's insulate. And then we were well prepared during that time. The guys in 1950 didn't have blankets. They didn't have guns. I was talking to a guy last night, and he said to me that this guy was telling him that they issued him an M1 and gave him 5 rounds. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I don't know why that guy would lie. But during 50, Larry, and 51, those guys had it rough. They really had it a lot rougher than we did, because they were equipped. They were better trained, and they just deserve the whole thing, because they're the ones that were on the Chosin Reservoir. They're the ones that came back with frozen feet and stuff. I still go to my reunions, and I meet a lot of the Chosin Reservoir veterans, and you look at them and you just know what they went through. But that's the way it goes.
You guys didn't have problems with frostbite or anything
Yes,
like that?
we did.
Yeah.
I don't think that I did, but there was people with frostbite. Oh yeah.
I know some of the guys I've talked to, they live in Arizona because it's warmer. They sleep with their socks on still.
Well, I have that trouble, but I was never diagnosed with that, so I was never treated. But I was diagnosed with PTSD, and also got compensation for hearing. So, but the frostbite is very, very prevalent in Korea. It's cold. You don't know when you got it.
Do you think it's good that veterans talk about what they went through in combat?
Well, I'm going to tell you something that I know. I go to a combat therapy class on Monday nights at the Veterans Hospital in Perry Point. And the guys that come there are in bad shape, a lot worse shape than I am. And they look forward to that class. They talk about it. Because everybody there is in the same boat. They just say that it means a lot to them. They can hardly wait to get to the meeting. It's not funny. They're sick. They're so sick, really. Unless you really see that, or you're with that, or you're involved with that, you don't really understand. But they go through a lot, especially the Vietnam veterans. Most of them are psychos that are really bad. I'm talking about. I'm not talking about all of them. But the guys that I'm with, I know a guy had packed a 45. A 9mm with like 50 rounds. They finally caught him because he walked into the Veterans Hospital and they had those things on it that put inside to check guns. They caught him. But he admitted it. He said, every time I see a policeman with a 9mm, I go off. And they're that sick. They really are.
Are there sights and sounds today or smells that remind you of Korea?
That's one of the symptoms of PTSD, is remembering smells or sounds. Snow it reminds me of Korea. Every morning I get up with the snow, and I can smell the burning wood that we used to use to keep warm in the barrels. And them two things is what reminds me of Korea. And as far as the noises, 4th of July, fireworks, they drive me nuts. But like I say, and I will say this, I'm not as bad as some of those guys. They really are bad. We should really thank them for what they went through. They deserve it.
So in Korea now, you mentioned hills and things. I mean, how would you guys take a hill? What's the strategy of taking a higher ground like that? I mean,
Well,
did you charge up there? Did
you charged up, and you made them get off that hill. You made them run. Once you saw them going down the other side of the slope, you knew you got it. But you take it one day, and the next day you give it back. Political. Yeah, it happened many times. We would take a hill, we'd lose 30, 40 men. Next day, we gave it back to them. That sounds crazy, but that's the truth. That really happened. It's such a crazy thing.
You mentioned the Chinese screaming and stuff. Did they blow whistles or bugles?
Everything. Screaming, whistles, bugles is one of the main things. You knew they were coming because you could hear the bugles. I mean, it almost like the charge, but I don't know whether they did that or not, but it was crazy. I mean, gee.
What was the purpose of that?
I think they were drugged up. I think they were drugged up. I don't think no one in their right mind would. They have flashlights. I mean, who would do that? I mean, you got to be nuts, really. There's a lot of things I could tell you, Larry. One time we saw a tank. I saw a tank in front of the mountain. I radioed back to the CP and I told the executive officer. He says, "What are you, nuts?" I said, "Come out here and look at it." He came over there, and sure enough, he had gotten off a road and slipped down the slope. And 2 o'clock in the afternoon, about 4 rounds, and it blew him away, and stuff like that. It sounds crazy, but things like that happen in places like that. I mean, it's really crazy. There's so many things to remember. I mean, but as far as wanting to go back there, and never. It's too much hurt.
Well, as far as the combat, I mean, what else can you tell me about it? You've described some things. 10 months of combat's a long time.
Well, in the combat area,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that you're in combat every day,
No, but
because you're
still.
not. I was with the 7th Division, and we were constantly in combat mode. I mean, okay. So when you get up in the morning, you eat chow, you sit around, there's nothing to do. You might read, do this and that. All of a sudden, 6 o'clock shows up and you got to go on patrol. You got to get your equipment ready during the afternoon. You get clearance from the command post. You go on patrol, whether it's a recon or a combat. The next day, you may not do nothing. But the following day, orders come down and says, you're taking Jane Russell. So the whole company gets ready, the regiment, and you go up. You got people that lead you, your officers and stuff. You go up on that hill and you rush it. You just try to get them off of there, and you do. I don't think I ever saw one that we never took. But I do remember that after you took that hill, we gave it back, and that happened several times, But the life of a combat soldier is at times boring, because you don't have nothing to do. But when action comes around, you just do the best you can. And you said it yourself, it's survival. That's all it is. you don't think about our country or anything like that. I mean, you should, I guess. I mean, after you leave there, you think about that, you know.
Well, Phil, being a Korean War veteran and seeing your friends die or get wounded in Korea, what does freedom mean to you? And tell me about the price of freedom.
Well, to me, as they say, freedom isn't free, and you've got to sacrifice. And I believe in everything that our country stands for, and one of it's freedom. And freedom is so valuable. It's so, freedom's like life. It's precious. Nobody understands freedom unless they have freedom, and I have freedom. I have the freedom to go to church wherever I want to go. I have the freedom to buy a car or whatever. People that don't have freedom, I don't think they would understand what freedom is. I mean, unless they experienced it, you know. But freedom is a very, I mean, I would do it again. I'd die for my country. I know that. And my son Danny went through it. My dad went through it. He was a gunner in the Air Force. So we're pretty much a military family, you know. And our Kathy's best friend, which is my daughter Stephanie, her husband's a captain in the Navy, Mark, and he's went through it. He's had several missions in Iraq and stuff like that. So, you know, freedom means a lot to me, Larry. People don't, but you're right. People don't think about it. They don't understand. As far as this thing going on today, we still have to respect other people's feelings. You know, I don't have to agree with them, but I respect them.
Well, what does the American flag mean and represent to you?
American flag, well, it represents, well, one of the biggest things it represents is freedom. The other is, other than that, I don't really know. I mean, I'm proud of the American flag. Everything I have has flags on it. But it means that you can be free. You can be free. You can worship. You can do anything you want. But it has its, you know, it has its limitations. I mean, you know, I mean, they may say that it's complete freedom, but it's not, because the government has their nose in everything. So it's not really total freedom, but it's better than anything else out there. You know, no, that's the way I feel. But the flag, that's a good question. I never thought of it. What did the flag mean to me? I know it just means that I fought for it. That's all I know.
How did your experience in Korea change you? Did it change you for the better, for the worse? How would you sum that up?
Well, I think if I hadn't been in the Army and I hadn't been in Korea, I think I wouldn't have been much. I think I'd have been loose cannon. But being in a war and being responsible and being what happened, you respect. You respect your life and you respect other people's lives. You know, dying is just so bad, you know. I mean, but you got to. We know that. But when people just take a life, like these people in Iraq, 200 at one day, I don't understand that, you know. I just don't, you know. I just don't understand it. But I remember all the guys that I left behind. I mean, they were. We were together we got hit on that October, and we were together for like 6 or 7 months before that happened. So we got to know each other pretty good, you know. But you know, some of the guys, the reason I got in touch with them is because of the internet. I mean, gee, I've got in contact with at least 12. that I have seen at the reunions in San Antonio, Texas, and Arlington, Virginia. Pretty much. This fellow was a Vietnam veteran.
Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
Well, you asked me what it did for me. I just think it made me a better person in the long run, in the long haul. You think different. You act different. You know, I mean, when you see a Marine with both his arms blown off on television, and by the way, we're not supposed to see that because of my condition. But one of my favorite movies is Elmer Gump. Forrest Gump. I just think that's the greatest movie ever made. Because I'm Army, I guess, you know.
It's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
Did you see Saving Private Ryan?
That's a very.
They probably don't want you to see that.
They don't. Well, this is truth. I'm telling you the truth. People, when they saw Private Ryan, ended up in the VA.
I've heard that.
They did it. I know 2 or 3 of them. They saw the last part of that movie, and they just got it. They just, they're in a. As a matter of fact, they have what they call a stabilization at the VA, and also, intense.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up in intense, and they had to be there for like 6-7 months in the hospital. It's a good movie, but boy, it's pretty real. I'm telling you.
Do you think you become a different person in combat in the sense that you might have to kill somebody, and how did you cope with that, or you were just trained to do that, or what? I mean,
well, you're actually trained to kill, but not directly. I mean, you train in basic training because you're going to crawl and you're going to shoot and you're going to do things. So actually, they are training you to kill. But as far as me killing a Chinese, it don't matter because, like I told you, like you said, you're trying to survive. So it's him or you. So what you're going to do is you're going to shoot him first. That's like George Patton said, you kill the other SOB first, and then he ain't going to kill you. So it's you don't think about killing anybody. You just do it. It's your job. I mean. You're going to do it. If you see a guy with a machine gun over there 20 yards from you, you're not going to let him. You're going to get him. You're going to try to get him before he gets you. I mean, that's pretty much what it's all about. I think that killing somebody's not right. But then the 10 Commandments isn't. They say 10 Commandments is in stone, but it's not. When they say I shall not kill, it doesn't mean that. It means that, but yet. Is God going to punish you if you kill someone for protecting your wife, your kids, your country? I don't think so. So it's not in stone, That's the way I feel about it anyway. Killing didn't mean a thing because that was part of your job, That's the way I think,
Well, it's amazing to hear you talk, and I'm glad we've had this opportunity, and I just think that well, let me ask you this. What do you want people, what should people remember about Korea?
They should remember that people sacrificed their whole being, and because of them they're here free doing what they want to do. Korea is to be remembered because of the sacrifice that all the guys that didn't make it. And the guys that did, but I mean, the heroes are the ones that are in the grave. It's not us. It's if people don't respect that type of a war, I don't know what to think, and I know a lot of times. It's called a forgotten war, and it kind of is, but yet it's starting to It's starting to come around, I think.
If you're not comfortable with this is fine. But can you talked about this gentleman, your friend that died in your arms? Can you describe what happened to him? Were you at a firefight or what happened? I mean,
That was a night that we got hit on that outpost. Willard was, he was a big, tall Negro. He was very nice. He was, you know what? I'll tell you the truth. I cannot remember if he got shot or if he died from a grenade. I just don't remember. Maybe I didn't even think about. All I know is he was bloodied, his vest, and when I reached underneath there, it gave him a tourniquet and all. But you see, there again, you don't think about things like that. You just know that he's dying, you know. But I met I got in touch with his folks in Shenandoah, Virginia, and we found where he was buried, and we're going to go back and we're going to clean the grave because they don't take care of it. So we're going to back, me and John Applegate, who's coming in from St. Louis, we're going to go over and clean it up, you know.
when are you going to do that?
Sometime this coming spring, probably, you know.
Well, let me know. Maybe I can go with you.
That'd be great.
If you let me do it.
I sure would let you do it.
Bring my camera with me.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
have a picture of this gentleman that died? Or does his family? Do you
This
still-
family would probably have pictures.
Maybe we could try to grab, because as you're talking about him in this video, I'd like to have a picture of him to put up on the screen. So maybe
Okay.
you could do that for me, maybe
Yeah.
at some time, or have them email me one or something.
Okay, I will.
Maybe
I
somehow
will.
we could do that.
Yeah,
I think that would
yeah,
be very moving and very.
yeah.
So, did he say anything to you when he was dying? Or
I
is-
can't remember.
Did you guys have like Catholic priests or chaplains or ministers of any sort? You hear like in World War II they would.
We
say
didn't.
last
They
rites.
say we did, but I don't remember any.
How about your chaplains or your medics? Were they busy? Were
Medics were there, yeah, but we didn't have any chaplain.
So the medics responded, or were,
Yeah.
were there calls for medics or corpsmen, or how did they get the wounded? I mean, and how did they get them out of there?
Well, they had to wait till morning, you know that. And I remember the stretchers. You had to wait because you couldn't. We were cut off. There was a machine gun set between the MLR, between the outpost and the command post, right in the center. So we had to wait till morning until they left. So they got him off the hill in the morning. They attended to him during the firefight. They attended to him and probably saved some lives. But as I recall, and I just know that the greater majority were killed. And I don't remember many guys coming down that hill. I remember 6 or 7 at the most. And I remember a general down at the bottom of the MLR. He said to me, "How many did you kill?" And I said, "I don't know. I know I did, but I don't." You don't think about things like that, you know. But, that's a long time ago, Larry. So you try to remember things, and you can remember most of it, but a lot of it's gone, you know. I mean, that's 54 years ago.
So as far as the men that died, I mean, did they take trucks and put them in trucks and take them out of there? Or
Oh
do you
yeah,
know?
oh yeah. Graves department. They take their dog tags and they put them in bags, body bags. They line them up at the bottom of the hill, and they load them up, and you help them load them up.
Are there things about Iraq or your son, Danny, or things you hear on TV or read in the paper that bother you?
Well,
Or is it reminiscent of what you went through, or is it different?
it's just so much different. It's you don't see. As a matter of fact, in Iraq, your GIs are not dying from firefights. They're dying from accidents. They're dying from road bombs. Once in a while, a sniper will get one of us, but it's a very simple thing here. The reason that you count 40 to 50 people every day getting killed, Iraqis, is because they can't defend themselves. But the soldier's got to, you know, he's going to kill you if you try to kill him. So that's the difference. But as far as if there's any difference, all I see is people getting killed in the streets. That's the difference. We didn't see that in Korea. You knew who you were shooting, you knew who you shot at. But this is crazy. This is crazy. 200, every day you read there's 30, 40 with their hands tied behind their back and getting shot execution style. And we, you know, that's really crazy. But wars are like that. Korea, when it first started, Seoul, Busan, it was mayhem. People were getting killed left and right out in the streets. But then the GIs came in, America, the United Nations came in, and they stopped that. Remember when they pushed us, and they pushed us back? But in the beginning of the Korean thing, that was what it's all about. People were dying in the streets because of the atrocities that the North Koreans brought upon them when they took over South Korea. Iraq, same thing, only it's worse. It's worse. It really is. I don't know how it's going to stop. I have no idea.
I want to ask you to do one more thing for me here before I stop.
Yes.
I ask all the veterans to do this, if you could. From where you're seated, when I tell you, can you give me a salute into the camera?
I certainly can.
I'll tell you when.
Oh.
Okay, Phil, right into the camera. Go ahead. All right. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now stay right there, because I'm going to take a picture of us, okay?
Okay.